Happy Bryce Underwood's birthday to all who observe, and what a birthday it was. He got himself a birthday present in five-star running back Savion Hyder committing to Michigan. That's the big news of the day, and we'll get into it. Also, actually, we'll get into it pretty quickly, but we're not going to spend a ton of time on it because you may have seen last video I posted an unsubstantiated rumor about Ohio State potentially hiding something because they're being legally protected by the Ohio Supreme Court. Go watch that video if you haven't seen it yet. Kind of juicy. This might get straight up spicy. Okay? Did Ohio State have a mole in Michigan's program? And did that mole feed information secretly, covertly, if you will, to Ohio State? And did Ohio State hire a third-party private investigative firm to look into Michigan, into Connor Stallions? We're going to get into that here on this episode of Magnum PI Big Ten Team Rivalry Edition. Wait, no, we changed our name.
Touchdown, Wolverine!
All right, so the big news of the day is that Savion Hyder, the five-star running back in the 2026 class, has indeed committed to Michigan. Michigan's backfield is going to be stacked when this kid comes on campus. You got Justice Haynes, you got Jordan Marshall, you got Savion Hyder. Is Justice Haynes around next year? I can't remember off the top of my head. What does this do for Michigan's recruiting class? Well, it puts them nice and firmly at number 10 here. They are now just 5 points behind Ohio State, although I will say that at one point they were ahead of Ohio State, you see, because Ohio State was ranked number 11. They are now at 9. Michigan staying at number 10, but still only about 5 points behind them, despite having more recruits and just as many 5 stars and just as many 4 stars. I guess those 5 stars might be rated a little bit higher or something. I don't know. But I will point out that in the 2026 player rankings, top 10 here, Michigan's got one. Maryland's got one. Ohio State got nothing. Where's Ohio State here, guys? Thought Ohio State were incredible recruiters. They are. They're very good recruiters. But that being said, other Big Ten teams in the top 10, you got Oregon at number 7. You've got USC at number 2. Makes zero sense to me. LA is smoggy and smells bad, so I'm not sure why anyone would want to go there. I'm mostly joking. I've never been. Georgia now at the number 1 spot, but still a huge pickup for Michigan, sitting nice at that top 10 spot. That's really great. It is very likely at this point that Sherrone Moore wins Michigan a national title within the next couple of years. Just a really exciting class of players coming in. But the story that I wanted to get to. So I guess I was kind of tipped off about this in the comment section of the last video. And so I wanted to look into it a little bit more. And so I went to my trusty dusty producer here, Copilot, or research assistant, Copilot, Bing Copilot. And I said, what's going on with this rumor about Joey Velasquez? Velasquez, I think. Did he tip off Ohio State about Connor Stallions? Now, if you don't know who Joey Velasquez is, I'll just go ahead and read this to you. This is the claim, is that some Michigan fans are speculating that Joey Velasquez, a former Michigan linebacker who transferred to Ohio State in 2024, may have tipped off Ohio State about Connor Stallion's sign-stealing operation. The theory is, or suggests, that Velasquez was cut out of Stallion's inner circle and upon transferring shared insider knowledge that helped trigger the NCAA investigation. Now, it wasn't necessarily upon transferring. There is a part of this rumor that says that he was giving Ohio State information while at Michigan, while he was still at Michigan. So how this rumor started, fan forums. The earliest mentions of this theory appears on MGoBlog, a popular Michigan fan forum, in threads discussing Ohio State's alleged involvement in exposing Michigan's sign-stealing operation. I will say that, and we'll get to this a little bit more in just a minute here, but this particular idea, the idea that Ohio State was tipped off by or got their information through, questionable means, and then we're the ones to hire the private investigative firm, that was mentioned in the Netflix Sign Stealer documentary as well. That wasn't just an MGoBlog thing. So that was not necessarily substantiated, but a rumor that was explored by, let's say, a more established, I don't know what you would call a media outlet. Users speculated that Velasquez, who had been with Michigan during the time Stalions was active, might have had access to internal knowledge and passed it to OSU after transferring. It wouldn't necessarily be after transferring, because there is a part of the rumor, like I just said, he was giving information to Ohio State while at Michigan. So this would have been during 2023, which is what would have triggered the investigation. Because remember, the investigation, or the original story, came out about Michigan the week of the Michigan State game back in 2023. So this was still during the Michigan season in 2023. Circumstantial fuels. Velasquez transferred to Ohio State in early 2024, just months after the NCAA launched its investigation into Michigan. His transfer was seen as unusual given the rivalry and his long tenure at Michigan. That may be the only part of it that's unusual, is that he was at Michigan for quite some time before transferring to Ohio State. It's not unusual that a Michigan player transfers to Ohio. I mean, it's unusual, I guess, but it's not like it's unheard of. I mean, other players have transferred to Ohio State. Coaches have gone from Michigan to Ohio State. Coaches have gone from Ohio State to Michigan. Tony Alford, there you go. Greg Madison, I believe, was a defensive coordinator or coach under Brady Hoke, who did end up going to Ohio State after his time at Michigan. So what's actually being investigated? So the NCAA launched its probe in October of 23 after receiving documents and video from a third-party firm that allegedly had a source inside Michigan football. The source is rumored to be that Joey Velasquez. Now, that takes me to this article here from Sports Illustrated that came out just about a year ago now, almost to the day, August 27th, 2024, at least to the week. Was Ohio State behind the investigation into Connor Stalions and the Michigan football program? Nearly 1 year after, we're not going to read that part because that's just the intro. On Tuesday, Netflix released a documentary, this was last year, featuring the former that was last year, right? Yeah, okay. Featuring the former U of M football staffer, where we learned a little more about the individual who is accused of utilizing a vast network for advanced scouting across college football. The documentary provided some background on Stalions, including his upbringing as a fan, his time in the Naval Academy, and how those two worlds collided in a way that helped him land a position with the Michigan football program. Also, in case you didn't know, 1-a-day multivitamin for men, very good for you. Guys, take your vitamins. The article goes on. At one point, the documentary turned its focus from Stalions to the mysterious third-party investigative firm that apparently began looking into U of M football staff members during the fall of 23. The third-party firm that conducted the investigation took its findings to the NCAA, which led to the sign-stealing controversy becoming the biggest story in college football over the last year. Although the third-party firm responsible for that investigation remains anonymous, the documentary certainly hints at who may be responsible. I don't know if this is weird that the firm is still anonymous, that we don't know who it was that was investigating Michigan. I mean, the NCAA has already brought down its punishment. For all intents and purposes, the investigation is over, right? So why don't we know yet? Why? And I'm not going to die on this hill. There may be a perfectly good reason for why we don't know. I just think that's a little bit strange. Will Hobson, a sports reporter for the Washington Post, provided some insight into the findings that led the NCAA to its investigation. He says, quote, "My understanding is that there was an investigative firm that through the fall of 2023 was basically investigating Michigan's sign-stealing operation. The firm had developed at least one source on the inside of Michigan football, and they had documents from inside Michigan football program that showed the schedule of games and identified the names of people that were going to be filming." Now, this is a little questionable, just given what we know from the NCAA's, what the NCAA released with the punishments. The NCAA said, and I've said this a million times on the channel, they've said that they have evidence that Michigan cheated. They have not produced any of the evidence. They said that none of that evidence was tied back to the Michigan football program or Jim Harbaugh or the players, just Connor Stalions. So I guess that's a question, is how did Michigan cheat if all of the evidence that the NCAA has about Michigan cheating doesn't actually tie back to anyone at Michigan other than Connor Stalions? But I understand Connor Stalions was the one telling, Mike McDonald what what play the opposing team was going to run next. You know, Connor Stalions was the one who told Ohio State's defense to not tackle Donovan Edwards on both of his 75-yard plus touchdowns in 2022. That's what happened for sure. The questionable thing here, though, is that, okay, so they had developed one source on the inside of Michigan football. That should be against NCAA rules. I don't believe that is legal. I think that they obtained this information illegally. And I think that might be, and I understand I think that might be, this is why this is a sports channel. This is why we focus mostly on the comedy of it all, is because there's no hard evidence about what happened just yet. And we don't know exactly why Michigan is, for instance, Michigan is fighting these charges. They are set to appeal the charges, or they're set to appeal the punishment anyway. Does this have anything to do with it? Steve Dace and Isaiah Hull are talking about this. They're saying that the entire thing isn't over yet. And Isaiah Hull has said that Michigan has evidence. And again, I want to see the evidence before I believe it's real. But Isaiah Hull says that Michigan has evidence that Ohio State illegally obtained information that was then given to a private investigative firm that was then given to the NCAA. You want to talk about a vast spy network. Ohio State's the one being accused of having a mole inside Michigan. So who's really the spy here? It is confirmed. Excuse me. Sorry, my nose itches. Allergies are real today. It is confirmed that the private investigative firm had a source on the inside of Michigan football. And that's a big deal. This is what's at the heart. This is the article goes on. This is what is at the heart of the NCAA investigation and the very thing that could ultimately lead to future penalties for the program. Dan Wetzel says, I reached out to the schools through the Freedom of Information Act, and stadium security video says that there's a guy in Connor Stalions' seat all by himself just videotaping the opposing signs. Kind of stands out. So yeah, I mean, it does sound like, again, it does sound like Connor Stalions broke some rules. Was this one of them? We don't know for sure, because the NCAA has not actually released any of the information that they have or any of the evidence that they have that Connor Stalions broke a rule as it pertains to Michigan. Now, is there evidence that he broke a rule when he went to Central Michigan to help them out? Yes, because Central Michigan admitted that they had asked Connor Stalions to help them out against Michigan State. So it is what it is there, but until we see evidence of what the NCAA says that they have on Connor Stalions as it pertains to Michigan, we just don't know what's going on. But what we do know is that Ohio State, there was a private investigative firm. Ohio State is the one who's being accused of hiring them, and that firm had a mole on the inside of Michigan, and Velasquez is the one that they think is the mole, and seems to be the one that at least his tenure at Michigan lines up with everything that went down, at least lines up with the timeline. Now, there was one part. Okay, so the NCAA reported overwhelming evidence of impermissible scouting, but did not name Velasquez or confirm any whistleblower identity. That makes sense. They're not going to do that. So they did confirm that there was third-party involvement from a firm that approached the NCAA with internal Michigan documents. Did they get those documents illegally? Is the question that I think is going to be explored with Michigan fighting back against those allegations, or at least appealing the punishment. But as of right now, there's really no hard evidence tying Joey Velasquez to the start of the investigation. But the theory absolutely remains, because so this is what's interesting. The broader narrative that someone inside Michigan tipped off a third-party firm, which then approached the NCAA, is supported by multiple reports. So there is support, and you can see it does cite sources here. There is support for the idea that Ohio State, or at least the third-party firm, had a mole inside Michigan who then who then gave them information and then approached the NCAA with that information. Was that information obtained illegally? That's really the problem here. Now, you'll remember it says that a lot of this rumor appeared on MGoBlog, or the earliest mentions of it do. I went to MGoBlog. That takes you over here to this page, Intrinsic. I don't believe a single word that Intrinsic says. He posts this. I don't know who Tachman is. Apparently he's a well-known member. But it kind of provides a little bit of a timeline of what happened. So I'll go through it very briefly here, and then we can just move on with our lives. It says, one source to Washington Post was a lawyer from New Hampshire. This person is a family friend of the Day family. The source comes from Washington Post reporter, or the source comes Washington reporter comments to other reporters' relationship to Day family via simple investigation. This guy doesn't even know grammar. Ryan Day's brother is a former DEA agent, and he and a partner formed a Michigan PI firm in the spring of 2023, basis simple investigation of company records. Okay, so they formed a Michigan private investigative firm in the spring of 2023. That's interesting. In August of 2023, Joey Velasquez approached Connor Stalions asking to be part of his sign interpretation team, made comment would help in baseball as he did that for baseball too, based on Connor's comments. Oh, I see. That's what it's based on. Okay. During the spring and fall of 2023, Joey Velasquez was sending anti-U of M messages saying he was a player to reporters. This becomes important in a few moments. The basis of this was seeing emails and account registered to Joey V with a Columbus, Ohio address. Okay, but okay, no, that's interesting. That does make sense. So Joey Velasquez had an Ohio address, a Columbus, Ohio address, but was saying that he was a Michigan player to reporters. So, okay, he says that becomes important in a moment. Info was provided same day by this source to my friend, so it is likely that Joey V, the former Michigan player, not his OSU student brother. Okay, this is getting a little weird now. In early October 2023, this player emailed to my friend, buckle up, NCAA is coming after Michigan, stating it will be bad. If NCAA gets Connor's schedule sheet, Michigan is screwed, and later said it was C. Blavin, not Joey V, as the player that was the rat. Basis actual statements and email from Joey Velasquez's account. In October of 2023, Joey Velasquez takes pictures of Connor's computer screen with his reflection in the screen. Part of this is based on part of what the NCAA case. Funny part in this, NCAA says they didn't know guy taking the picture they didn't know who this guy was, although he is in the reflection. These pictures were sent to the private investigative firm, then given to the NCAA, all within 48 hours. Per the NCAA report, they had pictures of people sitting in the seats purchased by Connor and included this video in the NCAA report. I am told by Connor he purchased the tickets the day before the game, so how did the PI firm knew where to find them in a stadium of 100,000 plus? Okay. So if I'm understanding this correctly, because this is a bunch of word vomit, and the guy desperately needs to get a handle on the English language because his grammar is friggin' atrocious. But what he's saying is that Joey Velasquez took pictures of Connor Stalions' computer screen, showing that Connor Stalions had this schedule of where people were going to be and what signs they were going to get and all that. He's told... this person is told that Connor Stalions purchased the tickets to those games the day before the game, but the private investigative firm, the pictures were sent to the PI firm and then given to the NCAA all within 48 hours. So how were they able to find the people sitting in those stadiums, those massive freaking stadiums, literally the next day? I guess the timing doesn't really add up here. If I'm understanding all of this correctly. So then he asks, so did Ohio State Ticket Office tell the private investigative firm? Did Ohio State Ticket Office just randomly tell a PI firm where someone purchased tickets? Did someone hack Connor's account? Certainly interesting questions. Yeah. On November 9th, Joey Velasquez calls Connor and records the conversation. This is reported as Student Athlete 1 in the NCAA report. Given Connor had a lawyer, and the lawyer that gave the NCAA and Washington Post the report, as well as Joey V had a lawyer, I am told it is against bar rules to have your client contact another party in an action. Certainly a bit of dirty pool. Please remember, let NCAA report they didn't know until November 15th. Student athlete 1 was Joey V. This guy doesn't make any sense. Okay, I mean, I don't understand what he's trying to say here. If he's trying to say that Joey Velasquez was the mole, and the mole fed information from Michigan to Ohio State, and this is the timeline he's trying to report, I mean, the timing, it could very well be that, if Connor Stellians actually did send people out for signs and get them to record the signs and send them back to him, it could very well be that they figured it out day one, and then the game was the next day, and they said, hey, look out for these people in these particular seats, because the guy, I mean, he said he took a picture of Connor Stellians' schedule. Maybe the schedule had the seats on it, so they knew where to look. I mean, it does say, the NCAA at least says that they have surveillance, or Dan Wetzel rather, says that they have surveillance video saying that they saw somebody sitting in those particular seats that Connor Stellians was rumored to have purchased the tickets for. Or not rumored, alleged, I guess you could say. Lies of number 10 let's see. On November 15th, NCAA interviews a few, not all linebackers, as an some Junior Colson wasn't interviewed, but Joey V was. During this interview, he says, Chris Partridge told me to lie, and someone named Uncle T gave money to Connor. Turns out both are wrong, but seems all else from Joey V, student athlete 1, is gospel. Did someone tell Joey V what to say? Why do I ask? 11. Lies of number 10 are used by the NCAA and Big Ten to drop TRO against I can't remember what that stands for, against Michigan, as the church lady used to say. Isn't that convenient? Was Joey told what to say to pressure Michigan? 12. Michigan beats Ohio State and Joey V leaves team and enters the portal. Allow me a sip of water after reading this atrocity. I don't know what to make of this. And I don't trust Intrinsic at all, but Intrinsic is an Ohio State fan. So he says the Ryan Day's brother story is now about the alleged whistleblower, a former Michigan transfer to Ohio State. Claim is he was tampered with after being cut out of Stellians KGB. Wetzel is set to push it, blaming Ohio State and arguing he was ineligible to vacate their title. I don't believe anything that comes from Intrinsic. I think it is interesting that he is calling out Dan Wetzel, saying that Dan Wetzel, because he also tweeted this, and we can all just sit back and watch Justin Spiro go nuts here in a second, which is fun. He is claiming that Dan Wetzel is set to publish a report blaming Ohio State for Michigan getting caught, saying that, Justin Spiro is even framing this as a claim that he's hearing, not confirmed reporting yet. So it's a claim. They think that Dan Wetzel is about to release an article saying that Ohio State did actually contact the private investigative firm. And if you combine that with some of the stuff that Isaiah Hole has said about what Michigan believes happened with Ohio State, Michigan believes Ohio State got that information illegally, which means Ohio State, if all of this is legit, and I apologize for going through this absolute train wreck of the English language here in these documents here, if I understand everything that they're saying in those documents and kind of combining that with some of the stuff that's being said about it, or from Isaiah Hole, Steve Dace, etc., the rumor is then Ohio State had a mole inside Michigan. Joey Velasquez was that mole. Joey Velasquez illegally obtained information, internal Michigan football documents, and sent them to the private investigative firm, which then sent those to the NCAA. So basically, if what I understand here is correct, the entire investigation was based on, and actually, let me take this a step further, because a part of this rumor, and I don't think anybody is saying this clearly yet, and I'm not saying that I believe it, I'm just saying this is a part of the rumor, it sounds like. People are saying, part of this rumor, did someone tell Joey Velasquez what to say? That implies that Ohio State would have told Joey Velasquez to lie to help bring down Michigan. Which lines up because players did say, the NCAA didn't name players. They said that players told them that Chris Partridge told them to lie to the NCAA. That came out with the NCAA itself saying that that wasn't true. Chris Partridge did not tell players to lie to the NCAA. But the NCAA said that players did tell them that Chris Partridge said that. But there is no actual evidence to back it up. So Chris Partridge has been totally exonerated. But Joey Velasquez here allegedly is the one who told them that Chris Partridge told them to lie anyway. Which means that Joey Velasquez lied about Chris Partridge. And that could have potentially helped bring down Michigan. Joey Velasquez may have been, or since it seems like he was Ohio State's mole, if he was Ohio State's mole, I should say instead, does that mean that Ohio State was telling Joey Velasquez to lie to the NCAA to make Michigan look bad and potentially derail the 2023 season? Because think about it this way. An investigation, all an investigation needs to do is knock people off course. All it needs to do for that 2023 season, it didn't matter if it was true. It didn't matter if any of that actually happened. It didn't matter if there was evidence. The public narrative is so strong that those players, these kids, 18 to 20-year-olds, 18 to 21 maybe, or in the case of Jack Tuttle, 59 and a half. The outside messaging gets to them. The outside messaging can get to anybody. The outside messaging has gotten to Connor Stalions. Connor Stalions has had his name dragged through the mud for the last 2 years. He couldn't get a job at one point. I mean, I guess he got the job at Belleville, but was it Belleville or I don't know. But the point being is that they didn't need any of this to be true. They just need it to be loud enough that it distracted Michigan from going on their natty run. And you saw what happened with Ohio State after losing to Michigan for the third time in a row. I mean, Ohio State fans were livid. Urban Meyer was livid. You don't come to Ohio State to lose to Michigan 3 times in a row. That sounded like a threat rather than a statement. And then not only does that happen, but he loses to Michigan a 4th time in a row. I don't know what's going on here, to be completely honest with you guys. Is Joey Velasquez the mole? Don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying I believe any of it. I'm saying that this is very suspicious. And I've wanted to get to sort of the bottom of why Michigan is appealing the punishment instead of just saying, okay, cool, it's over, we can move on now. And it's because Michigan actually believes that something is just not right here. Michigan, Isaiah Hull says that Michigan has evidence that this entire investigation was wrong, was based on something that was a lie. I'm just going to move the image off of Justin Spiro's dumb face. Michigan certainly believes that this entire investigation was based on a lie, and they're going to court to prove it, it sounds like. I wanted to understand a little bit better as to why that was the case. Why not just be done with this? I mean, it's over. You were basically vindicated for all intents and purposes. I mean, the NCAA is the NCAA. They're going to say that you cheated and then not produce any evidence. It's a little suspicious, but that opens the door for Michigan to then say, well, look, this entire thing was based on a lie. We want to clear our name, basically. The NCAA in their report even says that there was no evidence tying anything Connor Stalions was doing to anyone else. And Connor Stalions was basically obtaining signs, obtaining the signs, whether it was legal or illegal, we don't know yet because the NCAA hasn't produced any evidence. But he was obtaining signs, which everyone on every other team has a sign stealer. So in the end, they end up with the same thing. Everybody's got each other's signs. So what's the big deal here? That's what I think is so weird about this. And that's kind of why it was bizarre that the entire thing blew up to be as big as it did. And I don't want to believe, to be completely honest with you guys, I don't want to believe for a second that Ohio State hired a private investigative firm and went after Michigan using those methods. I don't want to believe that's true because I like Ryan Day. I think he's a good coach. A lot of those players from Ohio State last year and the year before, super easy to root for him. Trey Henderson, great guy. Will Howard seems like a great guy. Jack Sawyer, kind of a douche, but maybe he's cool. I don't know. His public persona is not great, that's for sure. But that being said, we don't know yet. And it seems like this is very far from actually being over. But we will keep an eye on what's going on. We will follow. If anything else comes of the Michigan appeal for the NCAA's punishment, we will definitely keep that going. But I saw a comment. I saw somebody said, if you think this is crazy, follow the Joey Velasquez rabbit trail. So here we are following the Joey Velasquez. Wow, say that a million times fast. This video has gone on way too long, but it is what it is. It's really interesting stuff. We'll see if any of it's true. I don't believe that it's true until there's evidence, hard evidence that shows that it is true. I don't believe that Ohio State actually hired a private investigative firm until their firm. It doesn't look good for them for sure. It looks a little sus for sure, but there's a lot of coincidences going on here. But until there's hard evidence, I'm Sweden. All right, I'm the color beige. I'm staying out of it. I'm just perpetuating unsubstantiated rumors. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Do you think Ohio State, dare I ask, do you think Ohio State hired the private investigative firm? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for 2,000 subscribers. Really appreciate it. This has just been an awesome ride. Really glad to have you guys along. So don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget to join us in the chat tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. when we go live. And we'll catch you in the next video.